Solution Ford is more than just vehicles. It's an experience. Like any good dealership, we carry a wide variety of vehicles to suit your needs and budget. Come test out the new Ford F-150, Mustang, or any other vehicles on our lot that catches your eye. Come into Solution Ford today, and our experienced sales team will take good care of you.
On February 17th, First Nations TV covered Cindy Blackstock's lecture organized by the McGill University Law Faculty. Cindy Blackstock is from the Gitxsan Nation. She is a social worker, associate professor, and activist. She is also the executive director for the First Nation Child and Family Caring Society of Canada. Blackstock explained to an audience of students from the faculties of law, social work, and health the history of Canadian First Nations child discrimination. Keynote of that history started by the story of Dr. Peter Bryce, who was hired by Indian Affairs Canada to inquire on the death of the Native children in residential schools. In 1907, he reported back to the government.
With a report that says that 25% of the children are dead in one school. Death rate really climbs to about 48% every 3 years. In one school, 69% of the children who were admitted were dead. And it was all due to preventable disease. Who reading this would want to believe that the government of Canada is guilty of manslaughter? Not enough people. Because in 1922, Dr. Bryce furthers his efforts. In one last shot, he goes into a publishing company and publishes a brochure, National Crime. And details all of the reports. He hands it out to all members of Parliament and all members of the clergy and anyone else he can get his hands on, hoping that people like us would rise up against it and save those children's lives. And we didn't. We live in a country where racism is fiscal policy. Talking about these inequities that are cross-cutting in First Nations communities that are really equivalent to economic sanctions against First Nations communities, right? Many people think these economic sanctions are applied in order to free up the land so that we move on reserve to get the services and therefore they can take the little land we have left. It's not an irrational theory. And yet it's been so neatly knitted into the Canadian fabric of consciousness that most Canadians don't even question it. They don't even question it. Those people who rose up against apartheid in South Africa never stopped to question why we have an Indian Act in Canada.
As social worker, Blackstock was frequently witness to fiscal discrimination policies against First Nation children.
So it's not that you're just being discriminated against in child welfare. You're getting less in education. You're getting less in basics like water. You may not have sanitation in your community. You may not have basic health care. And yet the outside society is judging you as if you got more.
For Blackstock, the obvious discrimination needed to be addressed, and she took action.
It was one of the biggest human rights cases of its time even then. 163,000 kids' lives were being touched by it. The first time ever in the world that a government was being held to account for its systemic treatment of a generation of Indigenous children before a body that could theoretically make an order. That much I knew. There was nobody there.
Blackstock explained how the different government bodies spied on her and her private life, trying to find a way to stop her quest for justice and equality.
They put me under surveillance with 189 different public officials to try and find other motives for the case. I was completely unprepared. I grew up in the 60s when these were the tactics of different banana republics in a communist state. It wasn't something that we did here in Canada. Taking the URLs of people that I was communicating with on Facebook, even a 12-year-old child.
All her work and perseverance paid off when the decision was finally made public.
When the decision comes out, I get the decision in a restaurant. Right? The embargoed copy. And I open it up, and the world literally went still for someone like me who had waited so long for this thing. And I could only read on my phone a few of the paragraphs, but when I saw the first things, this decision is about children, and it was underlined, I knew it was going to be good for the kids. And so many of you know that the panel took into Canada's consideration and found their evidence to be unreasonable, unconvincing, and not supported by the preponderance of evidence.
This is what Cindy Blackstock had to say to the people that want to get involved.
As people become aware, and we give them things that they can do to help change this. I just find that because this case is about kids, when people understand that they're being discriminated against, given less of an opportunity to get a proper childhood, Canadians of all different types are standing up. So we have 7 free ways that anyone can make a difference in under 2 minutes on our website, completely free, fnwitness.ca. So go on there and become part of the movement, become a hero for kids. It doesn't take money to do it, it just takes action and spirit.
Alex McCumber from Kahnawake was in the audience, and he believes that we are at an important time for setting things right. He is also convinced that justice will prevail.
The decision coming down in support of Dr. Blackstock and the work that they're doing, and recognizing the wrongs that were done by government is just so landmark and so important for setting things right, for one, but I think also for giving some strong feelings of hope for people and for communities, that all is not lost, that when you stick through things, when you stick to your guns, keep going forward, that justice will prevail. Justice does prevail.
As the decision falls in favor of the First Nation children, we find that the work that needs to be done is yet to start, and the victory is but one small step in the long process ahead to reach justice and equality for First Nations children in Canada. This is Sergio Pavone for FirstNationsTV.com.